When placed side by side, a Kettle Cooked chip is more browned than a standard chip, and from a texture perspective, the plain potato chip is delicately crisp, while the Kettle Cooked chip is harder and crunchier. Listen in. So how do these chips become so different? Well, from On Food and Cooking, Harold McGee notes that standard chips are cooked at a constant and high temperature around 350 degrees Fahrenheit and are done in 3 to 4 minutes. Kettle frying, on the other hand, is done in large batches, so when all the potatoes are dropped into 350 degree oil, it lowers way down to 250 degrees Fahrenheit and then is slowly fried while the heat comes back up to 350, about 8 to 10 minutes in total. During this extra time is where the magic happens. The starch granules absorb water and exude starch into the potato cell walls, which reinforce and glue it together, giving us a harder, crunchier chip. I, like many of you, absolutely love Kettle Cooked chips, specifically the jalapeno flavored ones. So I asked myself, is it worth it to make them at home?
Surprisingly, I would have to say yes. Assuming you already have a potato and oil, you can have a batch of these on your table in just 15 minutes, and it's actually quite fun to mess around with the seasonings.
Here's a look at the ones I made compared to the store-bought ones. And I ran through several tests during this process to try to find my preferred chip look and texture, including this potato chip graveyard, I'll call it. But let's run through the Kettle Cooked method and then that gorgeous jalapeno seasoning. To start, get out a single large russet potato and wash it under the sink, no need to peel it. Then, using a mandolin set on 2mm, a really sharp knife, or vegetable peelers, cut the potato into slices. Of the thicknesses I tried, the 2mm was the best, and a mandolin makes this really fast, but use whatever you have. Also, be super careful if you are using a mandolin, or this can happen. April Fools, I still have my appendages. Seriously though, be careful. Now, the type of potato is quite important. We want a high starch and low moisture, so the best option you can actually get at the grocery store is the russet potato. Here's the starch versus water content for russet, white, and waxy potatoes. As mentioned, the starch gels the potato and crisps up our fried food, so the more starch, the better crunch we should have, hence the russet as the top choice. Secondarily, a potato chip is just a completely dehydrated potato, so the less water content, the faster that happens. If it takes too long to dehydrate, the chip will brown and burn before actually getting crisp. It turns out that Lay's actually uses a proprietary potato that is drier and grainier than russets to make their chips. Now, after the russets are sliced, you have a decision to make. No wash, wash, or wash and boil in vinegar. I tried all three, and here they are. So washing removes sugars from the potatoes, which will brown, so if you want a blonder chip, pick one of those washing methods. Boiling in vinegar is the same concept behind French fries that burst starch granules. However, due to the slower frying process, I didn't notice a fundamental difference in crunchiness. I also polled everyone on Instagram, and the no-wash chip came out on top as far as looks go. The simplest method wins this time for me, so let's fry. Pour peanut oil into a wok or the frying vessel of your choice, and bring it to 315 or 325 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the temperature that I found best works for a single russet potato in my setup. You may have to adjust a bit for yours. And I will say, using a thermometer like this one is an invaluable tool for making this process foolproof as possible, so you can see exactly what the oil temperature is doing and how long they are frying. Place the potatoes on the plate and then slide them right into the oil to start frying, and stir and move these around constantly so they do not stick. Right away in the first minute, you'll know the temperature plummeting all the way down to 250 or even 240 degrees Fahrenheit, where it should stabilize and then start going back up. Continue frying the chips while stirring constantly until there is no bubbling left. All of this bubbling is just water from the potatoes, and a chip is a completely dehydrated potato, so if they're still bubbling when you pull them off, the chip will be soggy. Also, you can be a little rough with the potatoes here, which creates those interesting fold-over chips and broken chunks. This is around the 9-minute mark, and you can see the temperature has climbed all the way back up to 290 degrees Fahrenheit, and at this point the chips, there is very little bubbling going on, and none in most of them, meaning the chips are done. Place a paper towel over a wire rack and spoon the chips over it to absorb excess oil. Now, a word of caution, these chips can definitely go from perfectly brown to a little bit overdone in a minute or two, so be careful. I personally think I let these go just a minute or two long while I was changing camera angles for the shot, but I'm not complaining. In my test, I found that most batches took about 9 to 11 minutes. Now, it's best to season these while hot so it sticks, and obviously you can do so however you like, but I'm after that jalapeno copycat, which is the pièce de résistance. If you take a look at the chip bag ingredients, the 3 pieces that pop out to me are the jalapeno powder, garlic powder, and onion powder. Now, you could do dry spices, but I thought, why not try out some real vegetables in the oven? So preheat the oven to the lowest it will go, 170 degrees Fahrenheit in my case. Then I placed a whole jalapeno cut into quarters, 1 garlic clove peeled and sliced into pieces, and 2 layers of an onion on a wire rack and placed it in the oven. Let the vegetables slowly dehydrate until they are completely devoid of water. This took about 6 hours for me. Then once completely dry and crackly, break them up into little pieces. Add those pieces to a mortar and pestle and go to town on it until you have a powdery mixture. Also, this may activate the sinuses a bit. Once powdered, pour it into a bowl, and separately I added a spoonful of salt and a tiny bit of MSG to the mortar and pestle to grind up. Grinding up the salt and seasoning makes it even on every chip, which actually makes quite a big difference in your final product. Add the ground up salt and MSG to the powdered vegetables, along with a small spoonful of sugar, and I was quite happy with the flavor on this. To season, just give that mix a sprinkle over the chips, and there we have it. Taste them, they're super crunchy and tasty. I also got a container of cheese powder to mix with another batch, which I may liked even more. And these chips taste just as good, if not better, than the store-bought version. Crunchy, delicious, you've got to make them. Recipe will be up on my website.